Yo, what's up, dogs? Is it too late to do a review for Poor Things? I hope not, because I just saw this movie and I have to talk about it. I have my list here, and I've been thinking about this movie ever since I saw it. I've wanted to see this movie when I first saw the trailer for it, way back in like the early January, we'll say, right? And it had a release in Canada, in Toronto, which is about an hour away from me, hour 30 sometimes, depending on traffic, right? For me to get to it. And I was like, man, I don't have the time. My work schedule is all over the place. And then it came to my hometown, limited release, right? And again, work got in the way, so I just wasn't able to go and see this film. And eventually, I sent a text message to this little art house theater in my town that's downtown, right? I go there every now and then for movies that I may miss, but they always seem to play them, right? So I sent them a message. I'm like, are you guys going to get Poor Things? And they said, we don't know. But later in the month, they actually texted me and said, hey, we're going to have the movies coming, and this is when the date is, so get your tickets and be there. And I was like, I'm there. So I convinced my friend to go with me. We went down. He got the concessions. He paid for my ticket because, honestly, I won a football bet. I bet against the Bills, to win, right? So whoever, I forget who they were playing, KC, the Chiefs. So I was betting on the Chiefs to win, and if I win, he paid for my movie ticket for any movie. So I said, we're going to go see Poor Things, and he was begrudgingly on board, but by the end of the film, he did like it. He knows who he is. He knows who he is. He likes the movie as much as I did. So we got down there. He got the concessions. I had a nice little coffee. You can tell that this was in January because I was still drinking coffee then. I'm not drinking coffee right now. So, yeah. So we went and saw it late January. I think it was like January, like the last week of January, like January 27th. I think that Friday, because I knew I had to go to work on the Saturday evening. So I'm like, we got to get this in here. So I went with him. One theater screen, about 80 some odd people in there, and it was electric. Like the crowd was really into it, and I was really into it. Everyone around me was into it. We were laughing at the jokes. It was an interesting experience that I have a very long list of nothing but good in this film. I only have one bad thing in here, and I have a couple silly things in here, but mostly this movie was good. I loved every single thing about this film. Honestly, from beginning to end, I was just like, wow, this is probably my pick for film of the year for the Oscars. I think it will win it. That's how much I really enjoyed this film. So let's get into it. First things first, let me just give you a little breakdown of the story. So here comes the spoiler warning, and here we go. So the story is a lot of things, okay? But the core of the story, I would say, is a Frankenstein tale, or it's very inspired by Frankenstein, but only in certain aspects of it, right? It is a Frankenstein story, but there's so much going on to this story that you are just like mesmerized by what you are watching and what is unfolding. Because you follow this character named Bella Baxter, who's played by Emma Stone, and she is a grown woman with a child brain. And it is explained to us that her creator, which is kind of Dr. Frankenstein, is Dr. Godwin Baxter, who's played by William Dafoe, and he created her. And as the movie goes on, you learn her creation story is she committed suicide, and when the doctor found her, he found out that she was pregnant with a child. So he conducted an experiment by removing her dead brain and implementing a baby brain that was alive and well. And the experiment was, what will happen to this individual? So we have this character that is essentially introduced to us as an adult with a baby brain, and she is learning about the world around her. But the world that she is currently inhabiting is only the house of Dr. Godwin Baxter. And that is where she's like locked away, kind of as an experiment. And then we are introduced to another character, Max McCandys, who's played by Ramy Youssef, and he is kind of a protege to the doctor, and he's in charge of monitoring Bella Baxter's growth, and just like as a science experiment. That's really all she is to the doctor, even to see if this whole thing would work. And as she develops and grows and matures, she no longer wants to be a part of the house, and she wants to go and explore the world and learn more about the world. So then we were introduced to another character played by Mark Ruffalo, who is called Duncan Wedderburn. And he is kind of like this weird playboy type of character that woos her and says, hey, come with me and I will show you the grandeurs of the world. And he's like infatuated with her too. And so is Max. They're both like really in love with this character of Bella. And so she decides to leave with Duncan and travel the world and learn more about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the ways of the world. And that's what you're following, is this character who is initially starts off with a baby brain, and by the end of the film, she has, I would like to say, a young adult brain. I don't think she becomes a full-on adult by the end of this movie, but maybe she does. I don't know. I have to watch it again. But that's just the story in a nutshell, you know what I'm saying? And that's what you're following. And it's amazing. It makes you think a lot, too. Like, I'm glossing over, like, a lot of this story because it is... There's a lot. Like I said, like it's not just a Frankenstein story, because you could also look at this as like women's liberation, a sexual revolution. There's other things that you can think about this too, depending on like I was thinking at times, like there's scenes in this movie where I will get into it later, that you're kind of sitting there questioning the age of this character that we are currently with. And the things that she is undertaking, it makes you kind of sit there and go, what am I watching right now? And what is the message that is trying to be told to me here? Because there's points in this film where I'm like, I do not like what's going on here because I didn't know the age of the character's brain. And I will explain that in a bit. So let's just jump right into my list here, starting off with the good. And I'm going to start in a different order of things, okay? Because there's a certain way I want to just lay out this whole movie, okay? And the number one, like, is the order of things actually, like, number one doesn't matter in this. You know this, right? But the thing I would like to say that, like, when you start venturing into this world, it hits you right in the face right away that you are here to watch something different. You are going to be transformed or transported into this world that Yorgos Lanthimos has created for us, okay? And you get that right off the hop. And it's very interesting to, like, the visuals are just right off the hop. And I love them. I love the visuals throughout the entirety of this movie. I want to just start off with saying, like, the set pieces, the set design, the costumes, the world design, the world building, we'll get into that in a second. The rules, though, it was just very fantastical, very absurd, very magical, and just really engaging. And it just brought you in it just sucked me right into it. I was like, I am invested in what is going on here because of the world that they've just painted with. At times, honestly, there's scenes in this movie where I'm like, am I watching a live action Studio Ghibli anime? You know what I'm saying? There's a scene in particular in this movie where they're sitting at the dining room table, and at one end of the table is Dr. Goodwin Baxter, and at the other end is Bella. And Bella's still like a baby at this point. And we have Max sitting there as well. And it's just beautiful looking, okay? And like Dr. lets out this big belching bubble of gas, because that's the only way his body can produce things can digest food. And when he does, he has to let out a very noxious gas bubble. And it's humorous. It's also used very well to break tension and tone and make people laugh when you shouldn't be laughing. But it's actually really well done. And it's just like so beautiful. And you're sitting there like, oh yeah, I could see Miyazaki doing this. You know what I'm saying? And it just made me think that quite a bit, that I'm like, oh, they really are bringing like a Studio Ghibli anime to life here. And I appreciated that a lot. And that's why I want to start off with that right away. Then I want to get right into that this movie is humorous. Oh, super humorous. I laughed so much during this film. I wasn't expecting to laugh as much as that trailer makes you look like you're going to laugh, right? And it's absolutely funny. The characters are hilarious. I have to say that Mark Ruffalo, playing Duncan Wedderburn, is hilarious. Every single scene he's in is absolutely funny. He is just funny throughout the entirety of this movie. And so are the other characters. There's a lot of deadpan humor in this. There's a lot of black humor in this. And then there's just a lot of just straight up great quips and great dialogue delivery, and even Bella Baxter's delivery. She is so, I want to say, blunt with her delivery of this commentary of around her world, that it's humorous, right? It's hilarious. There's things that she just does, and you're like, the social awkwardness that we know as adults would be like, you would never do such a thing like that. But when she does it, it's so humorous to us because it's a break of the norm, you know, and that's what makes it funny. And there's like one scene where she meets this old lady, I forget the lady's name, and she just pets her hair. And I was laughing. Like, there's a lot of sight gags, absurdity, all kinds of good stuff when it comes to the humor. And I laughed way more than I thought I was going to. And so did everyone around me. Everyone else was enjoying a good laugh with this film too. And it's a good laugh, not at the expense of the film. It's just that the writers and direction and the people creating this world earned these laughs flawlessly, honestly. There's like weird animals in this movie I'm just laughing at because of the doctor, right? Now, I want to add into this before I go any further, before I forget it. The musical score in this movie is awesome because it fits the movie the entire time. It's such a weird sounds, like it's just weird sounds and weird musical notes, and it's just it's not jarring to the ear, but it feels like it belongs, and also you kind of forget that it's there, but it's there, and it's just it suits the movie so well. You know, I've never thought about music in a film before after watching this. Like, I do think about the musical score of, like, you know, when you're watching Lord of the Rings and epic swells and stuff like that. But this movie was so, like, out of the box and out of left field for me, where I was like, my brain actually was making a note of it going, this is cool, you know? So I wanted to put that down. That the musical score in this movie is cool. It's very complimentary to everything that's going on around in Bella's world. And I think that's one of the things I was thinking about, was that the music starts off very weird and it grows with her as she becomes from a baby to an adult. And I think that's a lot of the things that are going on in this world. As she starts off with baby brain and becomes an adult, the world around her changes from black and white to color to more bright colors, and it just, I think, is a part of a reflection, and this goes with the music, of this character's development and growth. And it's just another little check mark on the coolness of this movie. Like, they put so much thought and effort into it that I very much appreciated it, you know what I'm saying? So the next thing that I liked about this film is obviously the story. I thought the story was really well crafted. It engaged me for the whole time. However, the movie is 2 hours and 21 minutes long, and I do think, and I will talk about it in the bad, it dragged. There's a section in this movie where it dragged, where I thought it was over, and I was cool with it being over at this point, and I'll talk about it in the bad, but it carried on, and it gave me an ending where I was like, okay, I guess I can live with that ending, right? And I actually, after it dragged on, I thought the ending was going to be something else, which I will discuss in the bad, but we'll get to that. But in general, the overall story, I really enjoyed it, and I think it warrants a second watch for me, for sure, to see if there was more to this story than what my first viewing brought from it. But I really did enjoy it. It did engage me up until a certain point where I was like, oh, okay, we're still going, okay. So anyways, and that's not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing, but it is a bad thing too, because I was disengaged at that point, right? So some people might think it's not a bad thing, and I thought it's a nitpick. Maybe we won't call it bad. It's a nitpick, because I was disengaged and I had to re-engage, okay? And I'd like to point out the other good thing that goes with the story is I really enjoyed these characters. I thought Emma Stone as Bella Baxter was awesome from beginning to end, and what she does is captivating. And I was just like watching her performance of this character the entire time. I was just engaged. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I was just interested in everything that she was doing and what she was learning and how she interacted with people. Then I was curious about the people that were interacting with her as well. And I didn't know where this story was going, right? Like, that's the thing with this story, is you kind of don't know where it's going, but it's going somewhere. And the characters are so interesting and riveting that you're along for the ride, and you kind of don't care where it's going, but there is a section where you will care. But I was just like, yeah, this whole world is totally believable. And yeah, like I liked William Dafoe as the doctor. I thought he was a very interesting character. He brings up a lot of trauma and abuse of his past life, because that's why he looks so deformed, is because his father, who was a scientist before him, was very abusive and did experiments to him. And you learn about the experiments that have happened to him, and it's very deadpan humor when he drops this nuggets of knowledge on you, because you kind of laugh, but you kind of wince of the darkness of the humor, because the way William plays it is so deadpan, right? And it's just like so nonchalant, like so matter of fact of like, yeah, of course I'm a eunuch. My dad did an experiment on me. And it's so weird, but you like him. And then you have Mark Ruffalo's character, Duncan, who is just this like playboy sex fiend who just wants nothing but sex with Bella. But he goes through a crazy arc, and it's hilarious because like she destroys them, and it's awesome. It's awesome because like, man, Mark Ruffalo sells this movie, man. I honestly, you should watch the movie for Emma Stone and Mark Ruffalo. They're hilarious. They really are. There's scenes in this movie where Mark Ruffalo is just being an actor and making me laugh with just his visuals, you know what I'm saying, or body movements is just making me like get a humor chuckle out of me, you know. And it's great. The characters are great. They really are great. Man, if one of them doesn't come out of here with an Oscar, I'll be quite surprised. Because, like, I know Mark Ruffalo's going up against some heavy competition, so he probably isn't going to win it, because I think Ken will win. Ryan Gosling will probably win that one. But, yeah, man, Emma Stone might come away with an Oscar for sure with this one, and I do think Best Picture is going to this film as well. So, I guess I should just throw this in here in case you're wondering about the nudity. It is an R-rated movie. There's a ton of sex in this film. You see a lot of Emma Stone nakedness, and, yeah, there is some dong as well in this film during certain parts of the movie, but there's a lot of nudity, full frontal, and yeah, just might as well give you a heads up on that. So now let's get into the nitpicks, okay? The first nitpick I want to get off my chest is the rules of Bella Baxter. Now, it is explained in the movie briefly by Max McCandys that he has been observing her, and he says in his notes to the doctor that Bella is accelerating in age rapidly, and I don't remember exactly how it was explained, like how old she is every day that we were with her or every hour, but it does say that every day her hair grows an inch, and you do see her hair actually growing longer and longer as she progresses. So I'm thinking, like, as her hair is growing longer, that means she is actually getting older, but it doesn't explain it clear enough, or it was clear, and I just happened to not be paying attention at that point in time, because I might have been gazing at some cool visuals that are going on in this movie. There's a lot of eye candy in this film where you're just gonna be like, oh, that's neat. Oh, what were you saying? Like, definitely have to watch this again. Now, the last nitpick that I have, the film gets to a point, there's a wedding scene, okay, with Bella Baxter and Max McCandys. They're finally going to wed, and it's a part of the whole story and stuff. And then when she gets to the wedding, to the altar, she's about to say I do, when her husband shows up, which is from back when she commits suicide, right? So her husband shows up and says, no, this woman is mine, you can't have her, blah, 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 we are married. And honestly, at the wedding scene, I was excited. I'm like, oh, great, the movie's going to end on a very happy note. All right, that's cool. I'm done. I could go home right now. But then when the dude shows up, I'm like, oh, man, I was done. I was ready to go home. So then we have a very tension-built 20 minutes, I want to say, of her living at home with this man, and I forget his name. And it's just like, I was done, you know, and I'm like sitting there going, oh man, we could have wrapped this up at two hours, you know what I'm saying? And it still ends fine, but it wasn't the ending that I was expecting to happen though, okay? And I will say right now that I was expecting the doctor, so Bella at this point is smarter, and she's been reading a lot, she's becoming a little bit wiser. I honestly thought after she kills her husband, that she was going to replace his brain with her doctor or father, Dr. Godwin Baxter's brain, and put it inside his younger body so he could live longer. And that's what I was expecting, but that's not what we got. And Maybe everyone else was expecting the same thing, but that's what I was expecting. Because in the story too, the doctor who's dying of cancer, they can't fix it. So I actually thought like, oh, why don't you put his brain into his body, and boom, you can have your father can be around for longer because you already know how to do the experiment. It's a success. It's a success because there's another I can't remember the character's name, but there is another Bella that the doctor creates who's actually progressing slower than what Bella did, but it's in the story. Anyways, that's my nitpicks right there, okay? Now, I'm going to get into... Oh, the character's name was Felicity. I wrote it down right here at the very bottom. So now, it's time for the silly. But I was thinking about the silly a little bit, okay? Because there's things that happened in this movie where I'm sitting there questioning the age of the character performing these acts. And these acts that I'm going to speak of are of the sexual variety. And I was sitting there I might be the only one who was thinking this, but I was like, is this a minor in a woman's body now with this elderly fella, this gentleman who's, let's say he's in his 40s, and the woman herself, Bella, would say probably 30s, right? But she has a brain of a child. And I was like, these sexual acts that are going on here, this is wrong. Like, my brain was like, this is wrong. This is still a child inside a woman's body. And I get it that it is a woman, but like, yeah, I didn't like it. I was like, this is weird. You know what I'm saying? And maybe I'm the only person that thought that. That's why I put it into the silly. So maybe other people will think that too. But I was just kind of like sitting there going, okay, I wish I knew the rules because I would like to know how old she is when she's undergoing all these sexual activities. And there is a scene in the movie too where she's literally walking around this fantasy town of like Lisbon or somewhere like that, right? And she's wearing this little yellow short skirt, like it's short, and she's walking around town, bending over, picking up stuff and blah, 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 right? And you don't see no upskirts or anything distasteful like that. But then when she gets to her hotel room where Duncan is, she's like, let's have sex now. And she just takes off her skirt and she's nude. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, that's weird. It's just weird. There's things in this movie that you're going to watch and go, that's weird. Why is that in here? And I legitimately was like, why? Multiple times when I was watching this film. So, yeah, maybe when she was going through her sexual renaissance, she was at the brain of, let's say, an 18-year-old. Fingers crossed, or else that is just weird. Anyways, that is the end of my review. Tell me what you thought about it in the comments below. I really did enjoy this film, regardless of the way it made me think of things. There's a lot of really cool and interesting and wonderful things in this movie that I really liked. I definitely want to own it. It will be in my collection for sure. I definitely want to watch this movie again because I want to make sure that the rules were properly laid out, and maybe my silly thoughts of her sexual deviousness as a young child brain wasn't what I was thinking when I first saw it. So yeah, should you watch this movie? Yeah, I honestly think you should give this movie a watch for sure. I think you will enjoy it as much as I did. It really is a good film. I really did enjoy it, and I think you should watch it however you can. If you can see it in the theater, that's a bonus. If not, wait for it to come out on digital or physical and pick it up and rent it and enjoy it, and let's talk about it. So, on that note, the next review that I will be doing is Argyle, and yeah, that's it for me. So, whatever movie you guys are watching, I hope you're loving them and digging them. Peace out, everyone.